हरि ओम दीर्घायुष्मान भव स्त्रीभ्यः दीर्घ सुमंगली भव सर्वव्याधि निवारण प्राप्तिरस्तु सर्व ऐश्वर्यम् अभिवृद्धिर्भवतु सर्वे जनाः सुखिनो भवन्तु सर्वमङ्गलानि भवन्तु तदास्तु. So now I am continuing Comparative Religions, Hinduism versus Christianity, part number 26 in English. Therefore, the culture of the Jews, the Judaism, the Abrahamic culture prevailing over Israel, Jerusalem, Palestine were all one. Not much of a difference is there because from Abraham times, Sarah was the wife, the legal wife of Abraham, and she could not bear children. So Hagar, they call it as Hagar, and she was a slave woman from Egypt who was kept as a slave by Abraham. They are called slave. She was called a slave in the Bible also. I do not know how slaves can come. Whereas in India, if somebody does work to the somebody else, big hue and cry, unnecessarily politicized. So that slave women Hagar's children are of Palestinians, they say, because she was from Egypt and probably dark skinned, and well, that's how it is. And Hagar and Sarah, the first wife, was white skinned. Later on, she got pregnant later on after the slave women got pregnant, and slave woman was excommunicated by Abraham under the orders of Sarah. She was asked to leave. I think her son name is Isaac, or I'm not sure of the name. She left with her son. And then children were born, but that's it. They were called Palestinians. That's what I hear so. Now, what happens is the culture is that these Jews, these tribes in Israel, in Palestine or in Jerusalem, those areas, Semites, they are always looking for a prophet. And as per Judaism, you cannot have anybody coming as a god to this world. It's a blasphemy. They will stone you to death. They stoned it death. Even Caiaphas stoned Stephen to death. After 2 years, Christ had died, around say 35 AD. Well, that is how it is. So they'll be stoning to death. So that's why Einstein said he's too good a Jew. Jesus is a too good a Jew that he would never accept that he is God, because the Jews will stone him to death. And now if you see, there will be a lot of controversies, I said. Now, there are some verses which I also really do not accept, and I go as per the thinkings of other scholars in YouTube, like Richard Carrier or Bart Ehrman or Aspen Institute, even Lloyd's, Aspen Institute's Reza Aslan. I've heard of these, a lot of lectures and BBC documentaries. See, if you take Jephthah was a prophet, acclaimed a good divine person as per Bible history. Now, actually what it does, if you refer to the Judges, there is Judges, a separate section. Judges were all the sayings of all these rulers in those pre-Jesus times, old Jerusalem times, old Jewish times. And there were a lot of judges, I told you. There were Deborah, there was Gideons, I don't know how they pronounce. And if you go and see 37 and 36 in chapter 11, you can see a story of how this Jephthah, what he did was, he was in a war with the Ammonites. And he defeated them, but he offered to God, his God, that if I defeat them, whosoever comes out of my house first, I will give them to you as a sacrifice. That is, I will kill them and give them to you as a sacrifice. Now, this is too high a sacrifice. It is called Narabali in our system. Okay. Now, who came out first? First was his own daughter. She ran out of his house. So immediately she caught hold of her, and he told her that I have offered to my Lord you as a sacrifice. You have to accept it. The girl also, poor girl, nice girl, Appa, she says, I'm not going to refuse that. Since you have already prayed for that and already opted for that, I am prepared to offer myself as a sacrifice. Don't go against your own word. But she asked for 2 months' time to mourn her virginity, to dukkify, to celebrate, to mourn for her virginity, because she had been virgin. Probably she did not want to be a virgin. When you say mourn for, you can mourn for somebody who had died. That is your sorrow. But she says she wants to mourn for her virginity. That means she wanted a married life, but she, because of her father, she chose not to be. Well, this I don't agree, and he sacrifices his own daughter. I don't agree this. Nobody would agree to sacrifice their own daughter, even if even if it is a word to God, you only can pray. And there are also like Abraham or Moses sacrificing their own son, and God coming and prevented. But here, God did not prevent. The offer of sacrifice was accepted. So this could be an historical fact amongst Jews or those tribes prevalent in those days. But I am sorry that I feel very sad for it. Not only that, if you take Homer's Troy, it's a Iliad. Homer is a very great Greek scholar. These Greeks are the writers of these Gospels. Okay. Now the Homer in its Iliad talks of Troy, wherein Agamemnon, the Greek city-state king, along with his brother Menelaus, wanted to invade Troy because Helen, the wife of Menelaus, ran away with Paris, the prince of Troy, when he had come for a courtesy visit, a goodwill visit. She ran away. So that's how the story goes. And then Agamemnon sacrifices his own beautiful young child daughter to the gods so that he can have the benefit of the wind blowing in the right direction for all this armada, the flotilla, to sail to Troy. The story goes that he built about 1,000 ships. So they should have a favorable wind blowing direction for them to set sail. So for that, the priest told him to sacrifice his own daughter, which he did. So that happens to be those culture of those Greeks and those Romans and those Jews, Palestine, in those Iberian Peninsula area. Well, that need not be deified, or it not be say it's divine instructions. No, I don't accept any God asking their children to sacrifice another child. No, that is, I don't accept personally. God will not do that. Is true love. He knows the sorrows. These writers infer, conjecture that God has told them and they sacrifice. Well, if these types of things happen, and not only that, in another Bible, in the version, I think it comes from wherein Josephus, I think, he offers his own son's wife, a concubine. He has not officially married, so it's a concubine. The concubine of his son and his daughter as a sacrifice to the invading army so that he can protect a male guest staying with him. Well, I don't accept this also. And his son cuts the concubine into 12 pieces and gives to 12 tribes of Israel, the invading army. See, these are all there in the Bible. See, if it is in history, that's a different thing. Whereas Iliad is not in the history. So I'm not really telling, but I'm just telling you as a reference matter of the culture of those people's thinkers, how they think. So the point is, in Bible it is there when he cuts the concubine's, that is son. The son has not married her, but she's keeping him as his wife, but technically called as a concubine. He kills her, offers the entire his pieces, body pieces, to 12 tribes of Israel. That's what probably Jesus also says in St. John's, eat my flesh and eat my blood, drink my blood. I do not know, but this is a structure. And he was offering his own daughter as a sacrifice or to them. And this concubine was really molested, and all those things are there in the Bible, which you can go and check it. But I really do not accept all these things, because it feels I am very personally not approving these type of himsa, because basically brought in ahimsa as per Mahabharata and Krishna. These are all himsas only. Offering the daughter, offering, even though it is a concubine, it's a son's concubine. You can't offer anybody, cut them into pieces and give them to the 12 tribes of Israel. It appears there are 12 tribes in Israel. And anybody non-Jewish, like Gentiles or Pharisees or Sadducees or scribes, all were scolded by Jesus. That's what the Bible says. They have written it in his name. And we have already seen that there is a death for withholding the money. See, in the Acts 5:1, it very clearly says that even in Peter, yesterday I was telling you, when the money was, when a land was sold by the couple, and the money, they kept the money, some portion of it with them, and then surrendered the balance to the feet of Peter, Saint Peter, who was an apostle. Okay, it's right. It's a very good thing. But then what happens? The apostle asks him, the man, the husband, are you not retaining some money, or have you given the full money? The apostle says, excuse me, I have retained some money for myself. I have not given you the full money. Then he says, for this you shall die or something. He falls dead. So the entire church of St. Peter gets astonished and flabbergasted and shocked or something. Then what happens, his wife also, she comes later on to find out where their husband is, because husband has been buried by somebody, by the followers of Peter. She comes in search of the husband, and the Peter says, yes, he has been buried, but are you having the money? Is it not true that you are retaining some portion of the money coming out of the land which you had sold? You are retaining, instead of giving it to God, you have lied before the God. You have told him untruth. As you were staying, she also dies. So the church and the other people in the area says, it's a power of Peter, because he can curse anybody to death. See, cursing anybody to death and all, these are all not divine acts. No divine person would curse anybody or want anybody to die, even if they had committed sin. And that is one angle. And everywhere, if you say, if you see in the Bible, death by punishment, that is, I punish you by cursing you and you die. In our Shastras, death is not a punishment. It is a body giving out one garment and entering other garment, where in 2:22, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, I have repeated this verse, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naraha aparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. The old garments, Vasamsi means garments. Vasamsi jirnani, the digested garment, yatha vihaya, as it is thrown away, navani, the new ones, grihnati naraha aparani, another one, the man takes the new garment, wears. Tatha, in the same way, sharirani vihaya jirnani, digested body is thrown away. Anyani, another, samyati, enters, navani, new body, it enters the dehi. Beautifully we say, even in Gatopanishad we have these verses. Yonim manye prabadhyante shariradhvaya dehina. As per your karma, you will enter the bodies. That's all there. But we don't really curse anybody to death. Now, if you go in this verse, see, Jesus also says in Matthew 5, Matthew 15, 4 and 5, that Jesus says, those who do not honor their father and mother, let them die. Jesus says, as per Matthew, the verse number I am quoting, you can read that verse. The Vibhagam, the chapter is 15 and the verses 4 and 5. Now, not only in Matthew of Jesus, everywhere in Bible if you go, you can see that if a son disobeys his parents in Exodus 21 and 17, he will be brought before the priest and the priest will ask him to be killed. In Exodus also everywhere it says, if men are quarreling and one strikes the other with a stone or a fist and he does not die but is confined to bed. Now what has happened in Exodus, I am quoting the verse 21, that is chapter 21 and verse number 17 in Exodus. It says very clearly that he shall be put to death who does not honor his father and mother. Mean that I do not agree. Matthew says, honor your father and mother. That is what Jesus says. And anyone who curses his father and mother must be put to death. Okay. But in Exodus 21:17, he shall be put to death. Then in Deuteronomy 27 and Shloka 16, it says, "Cursed is he who dishonors his father or mother, and let all people say, Amen." That means finished for him. Or if you take Leviticus 20 and 9, if anyone curses his father or mother, he must be put to death. He has cursed his father or mother, his blood shall be upon him. That means you have to kill him badly, so that his own blood shall be upon him. That is Leviticus chapter 20, verse number 9. There are several verses fully which says in Exodus 21 and 17, it says, I read that, anyone who curses his father or his mother shall certainly be put to death. And he who curses his father or mother, in NASB 1977, mother shall surely be put to death. See, any parent, even if they have disobedient children, they don't like their children to die. That's common sense. Any parent. Is it not? We can think about practically. We don't like our child to die even though he disobeys us. We'll try to reform him. If he doesn't get reformed also, then it is your own fate, we would say. That is our Indian culture, because it is ahimsa culture, right from Mahabharata, everywhere it is ahimsa only, from the Krishna Yajur Vedas, everywhere. Therefore, the question of killing a son or a child who is disobedient to the parent should not come at all. He should be reformed. Otherwise, we pray to God, let him fend his own fate if he is going to dishonor. Whereas in some verses in Bible, he has to be brought in before the priest and they will condemn him to death. Well, even if a child takes some alcohol or drugs, I mean, will any parent would like to condemn their child to die, or they want his death? Even I am not acceptable if Jesus had said this. I don't think he would have said. That is in Matthew 15 and 4. It is very clear. For God said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. This is which I don't agree, because it appears to be very violent. It's not a non-violent thing. Therefore, with these verses are there in Bible, which only shows the culture, the pattern. See, as a teacher, what Jesus did in those times to the furious mob of Israel. Some are Jews and some may not be Jews. There are tribes who are non-Jewish, like the Gentiles. He would have preached good, love and everything that was welcome. But if he had preached like St. Luke, I told you, chapter number 14 and verses 26, you have to hate your father and mother and brother and sister. No, I don't accept, even if Jesus has said. Or in Matthew, if your disobedient child comes, a child, he should not be put to death. Jesus says he has to be put to death. That's what Matthew writes. Matthew has not seen Jesus. None of the 4 gospel writers have seen Jesus. Mark is the oldest. All these people write like this. Mark quotes Moses and he says, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. That is too a strong word. Whereas Matthew uses as if Jesus has said, but here Mark is slightly said Moses has said. See, there was a culture. There was a culture of honoring parents, like our culture, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava. But we don't say that if you disobey, you have to put them to death. We don't say. Never. There is no such thing in our verses. Not even in Puranas, imaginative writings of certain rishis. Not even Puranas. These tough himsa words, I don't accept. Sacrificing your daughter because you promised God. Killing your son because he has disobeyed you. In order to protect a guest in your house, you want to sacrifice your own daughter or your wife's concubine or your son's concubine, cutting her into pieces and giving her flesh to 12 tribes of Israel. These are all not acceptable in modern times. That's what, in modern times, thinking is different. Even it will not solve the problem for modern fraternities, whereas Bhagavad Gita would solve. We will talk of more of Bhagavad Gita's practical verses also. So these verses are there because it was a culture. And they were so unruly that strict punishment should have been given. That's what the authors of this Bible want to say. Probably they may not even mean that. But they were so strict, so tribal, so naive and so uneducated, so unruly, so cannibalistic attitudes of these tribals, that this may be the intention. Giving a stronger punishment would deter them from from these people, from the children, to do those crimes, to do those dishonor to their parents. That's what they probably mean. But even then, I would say it is too strong. Okay, my dear friends, today I shall discontinue and continue in the next session. Till such time, Bhuyat Tavat Shubha Mangalam. Hari Om.